Well, howdy everybody, and welcome back to the farm. Today's episode is going to be short. Right now, I'm on a short but necessary vacation, more of a staycation. I rarely leave Austin, and it's kind of frustrating to have to do some partial episodes and skip a week and whatnot because there's a lot of things happening on the conspiracy theory front.
Projecting visions in our minds. This is disclosure, baby. I'll be alright. Don't pay me. Tell me why you act so shady. Feel the intercontinental
Oh yeah.
heat.
We've all seen batches of videos that the Pentagon has been releasing. And just 2 days ago, the Department of War released another batch. And of course, there's a lot of questionable, grainy videos of silvery stuff zipping around or lights in the sky. And as I've said before, I'm not super interested in all that. I'm interested in who built these things? What's the agenda? And of course, why is it being kept secret? Apparently, in the most recent batch of documents, we have transcripts of very weird things that the astronauts encountered on the moon during the Apollo 17 mission in the early 1970s. And we'll have to talk about that in an upcoming Meet the Aliens episode. And at this point, the evidence of NHI, non-human intelligence, visiting Earth and interacting with humans, the evidence for that has become so strong that our old friend Neil deGrasse Tyson has said that he's come over to our side. He has always thought that the most reasonable position was that intelligent life existed somewhere else in the universe because the universe is so unimaginably vast and contains so many exoplanets. But he's always been very skeptical of claims of UFO encounters. But that time is coming to an end. And so there's a lot of research for me to do, a lot of scripts I need to write, but there's so little time. And you guys, for the most part, listen to the Conspiracy Farm podcast on Sundays. And so I thought it would be fun to trot out an old song that I created for a previous episode. And it's a song about how important Sundays are when you're working hard all of the rest of the week. And so here it is, a song called Gotta Be Sunday. Lyrics by me, and the music was generated by the AI Mureka, Mureka, and it was based on a clip from a Backstreet Boys song. So, it's nice and light. It's exactly the kind of mood you get into when you're thinking about aliens and government secrets. And so, let's take a listen to Gotta Be Sunday.
Let me tell you why. gotta be Sunday. Da, 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 da. You are my shining star. You are who you are. But listen when I say, please wait till Sunday. Let me tell you why. Working every day of the week. Let me tell you why. Saturdays I just feel so weak. Let me tell you why I can't do it today. It's gotta be Sunday. Da, 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 da.
Well, that was fun. And, while I was thinking about love and spending time with people that I care about, that, of course, always makes me think of directed energy weapons, otherwise known as DEWs. And these are basically microwave guns, and they can destroy missiles or satellites. But on low power, they can also be used to harass or injure people. And an indirect attack from a microwave gun can cause a kind of brain damage that has been called Havana syndrome. And of course, we've talked about this before on the Conspiracy Farm, and now it's becoming fact. In recent congressional hearings, experts have testified that Havana syndrome is a real thing, and that these directed energy weapons do exist. And so, we'll have to talk about that. We'll also have to talk about hearings on one of my favorite subjects, MK Ultra. Remember, I did a whole episode on MK Ultra and some of the wilder theories about experiments they conducted on the public, about creating robotic assassins to do dirty work for the powers that be, with complete plausible deniability. We'll also talk about some comments that Representative Burchett made that I thought were pretty intense and powerful, having to do with agents of the CIA directly and openly blackmailing members of Congress to influence their votes. And in the spirit of talking about MK Ultra, I wanted to bring back a blast from the past, a clip from that episode on MK Ultra called Explain Charles Manson. Now, this Charles Manson guy was of course brought up during these hearings, and it was even suggested that the Tate LaBianca murders, the Manson family killings, constituted a kind of field test for the MK Ultra mind control techniques and techniques to create violent assassins out of people who did not consent to be made into robotic killers. So, it's not a super funny subject, but of course, I try to find the humor in it. And so, let's go back in time and let's listen to me try to explain some famous Charles Manson quotes. And so here it is. Explain Charles Manson. People generally think of Charles Manson as crazy, but if you take the time and really read between the lines, you'll find that he has some cogent, responsible, and important things to say about society. We're going to start off with our longest quote, and this one just gives you a sense of Mr. Manson's oeuvre. It gives you a sense of the kind of guy he is, his overall vibe. I mean, he's a rock and roll dude. He's from the streets. He doesn't have time for intellectuals like me and my fancy computers. So let's hear what a real man of the world has to say. Are you ready, Charles? Here he comes. the Ayatollah of rock and rolla, Charles Manson. Go ahead, Chuck. Cook for us.
I don't want to take my time going to work. I got a motorcycle and a sleeping bag and 10 or 15 girls. What the hell I want to go off and work for? Work for what? Money? Huh. I got all the money in the world, baby. I'm the king, man. I run the underworld, guy. I decide who does what and where. What am I gonna run around like some teeny bopper somewhere for someone else's money? I make the money, man. I roll the nickels. I deal the cards. The game is mine.
Explain Charles Manson.
Please explain Manson now.
Okay, well, I think it's pretty clear what he's trying to say here. We live in a culture where the vagabonds, the pimps, the intelligence agents, the handsome men on parole who can write catchy songs, these are the people who are controlling the minds of the youth. So why bother starting a bank when you can plant seeds of culture? Manson was actually warning us a bit about the counterculture. In other words, if young men have a choice between hard work and responsibility and family versus 15 girls and a motorcycle, I mean, which one are they going to pick? And you can't have a society if too many people pick option B. So score one for Manson. Good job, Chuck. What's our next bit of wisdom? What's our next quote? Let's see. Let's listen.
You know, a long time ago, being crazy meant something. Nowadays, everybody's crazy.
Please explain.
Okay. So to understand this one, you gotta go back and put yourself in the early 1960s, back when crazy was a thing. It was a thing that people could be. And Manson is basically lamenting the fact that the intelligence community has to murder people a lot more often now because it's harder to discredit people for being crazy, because everybody's crazy. I mean, doing or saying strange things no longer exempts you from participating in our culture or our power structures anymore. So it used to be something special, you know, to be someone like Charles Manson that the intelligence community could use and then point at and say, whoa, check out this guy, he's nuts. Now you got to have the strontium-90 bullets and all the other crazy ways of getting rid of crazy people. So I think that's what Charles Manson is talking about here. Good point, Chuck. He's making sense, guys. Our society has so degraded our mental health that our mental health standards are no longer what they once were. Now, let's hear the next one.
You look down at me, and you see a fool. Look up at me, and you see a god. Look straight at me, and you see yourself.
Explain. What did he mean by that, Vincent?
Okay, I got this. So your perception of people... So what Manson is saying here is that your perception of people like him... Manson is suggesting... I think here Manson is suggesting that your perception of people like him says a lot about what you are. If you look at him as a scumbag criminal, then you make yourself God. because you're judging him. You're putting yourself above him. Now, if you look at him like he's a god, then is he suggesting here that you're the scumbag criminal? In other words, maybe you shouldn't do that. Some people might think, oh, he's saying that if you look up at him, you'll see a god because he's God. I don't think that's what he's saying. I think that he says that God is anything you do look up to. That if you look up to anything, that becomes your God. Then Manson says if you look at him on his level, then you'll realize that you are on his level. In other words, neither one of you is a criminal and neither one of you is a god. Does that work? Yes. Nice. Okay. All right, let's go for number 4. What's number 4?
These children that come at you with knives, they're your children, not mine. You taught them. I didn't teach them nothing. I just tried to help them stand up.
What did Charles Manson mean by that, Vincent?
Okay, this one's pretty easy. Manson is basically saying that the murderous young people that he sent to kill those people late at night in 1969, those people were made violent by the media and the culture that they grew up in. That all Charles Manson did was point them in a particular direction. He showed them how to express their violence and rage, but he's saying that these kids were already full of violence and rage and they just needed a place to put it. And when he says, I just tried to help them stand up, I think that hints to the fact that the reason why young people followed him and wanted to do these terrible things for him was because he promised them a kind of empowerment. He promised them a way to take over the culture and change the world to make it more the way the counterculture wanted it. They didn't want to just hold picket signs and march. They wanted to smear blood on the walls and go nuts. Manson is trying to tell us, look, these people wanted to do that before I even met them. Don't blame it all on me. So what do we think? Does that work? All right. Ready for number 5.
Total paranoia is just total awareness, man.
What did he mean by that, Vincent?
Aha. Okay. This one points directly to his experiences with LSD and with this thing we're calling the self and how it's constructed in the brain. So, I admit this is a tough one, but bear with me. So, total awareness would be the experience of having no self. It would be viewing no difference between yourself and the rest of the universe. And people who do meditation or remote viewing are familiar with this kind of experience. Now, he's saying that there's a connection between this and paranoia. Now, you guys might be excited to find out that paranoia is essentially ancient Greek for overthinking. And so you're just finding too many patterns and too many plots in all the noise of everyday life. And if you were aware of every thought and every plot, you'd have quite a busy mind yourself. You would seem to be a little scattered and disengaged and seeing things that ordinary people don't. And so they think you're just nuts. So what's going on here is Manson is showing that Manson is explaining how what a lot of people would call insanity or a lack of mental health is really just understanding better how the world works. That the more you understand about the world and the more you know, the more insane you sound. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Hey, I like that idea. I like it. Let's bring on number 6.
In my mind's eye, my thoughts, like fires in your cities.
Please explain.
Uh-huh. See, you probably think that that's a tough one. You probably think you got me there. But you'd be wrong. To the uninitiated, one might think this is just some insane rant of a dangerous, crazy person who's trying to scare you. But that's where you'd be wrong. Mr. Manson here is simply alluding to the power of consciousness itself, which he explored as a test subject in the 1960s. So just like CIA remote viewers can detect alien bases underground on the other side of the world, Charles Manson is wisely explaining to us that a person's intent and their consciousness can physically affect the world, and this is something that he learned. Does that work? Sound good? All right, I'm unstoppable. On a roll. Lucky number 7, let's go.
No sense makes sense.
Why, whatever did Charles Manson mean by that, Vincent?
Okay, Manson is trying to explain that what we think of as reality is just like a he's saying that if you're like wanting to make sense of the universe, then what you bring to the table in terms of your preconceived notions and perceptions don't always apply to the. So when you're everyone has their own philosophy about how they okay, fine, you're yeah, fuck it, you're on your own with that one. I don't know. We're all on our own with that one. Maybe that's what he's saying. Is that what he's saying? Everything makes sense to somebody. Makes sense to me. So, all right, 6 out of 7. I did pretty good. I'm the current world heavyweight champion of Explain Charles Manson.
Explain Charles Manson.
Well, that's all for today. I hope we had a little bit of fun. Again, sorry for the short episode and some of the rehashed material. Hopefully, it was at least a little bit interesting, a little bit funny. And in upcoming episodes, we're going to talk a lot about the Odyssey. After we conclude our discussion of the Exodus story and the Ten Commandments and Yahweh and all that stuff, we'll transition into our discussion of the historical underpinnings of the Odyssey. And then we'll talk about the development of Greek culture that resulted after the Bronze Age collapse. Then we'll start a series that I'm going to call A History of Violence. And that refers to my own history. And in this series, I'm going to be talking about my unusual experiences with violence of all types during my strange life, including multiple situations where I thought I might have to shoot somebody, and I had a loaded firearm in my hand, safety off. Those were memorable. I'll also talk about the 2 separate times that someone put a knife to my throat, and it taught me a lot about the power of listening and having some patience and really listening to what someone else had to say. And you really zero in on one person and their needs. And of course, it's the needs of the person with the knife, not yours. And we'll also talk a lot about fighting and bullying in general. And we'll talk about what that might mean and how our culture has changed. And of course, all of this sounds like a lot of lighthearted fun, but, you know, that's what we do over here on the Conspiracy Farm. And so, until then, talk to you later.